What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the 2018 mixtape from Lil Durk, and this project is called Just Cause Y'all Waited. Now there was a sequel to this that was an album, and Lil Durk's kind of like a street heavy rapper that kind of reminds me of like a mid-late 2010s version of Waka Flocka Flame, where he was kind of a rapper that kept his ear to the streets. Another rapper like Lil Durk a lot, besides Waka Flocka Flame, is kind of like Yo Gotti. Just those kind of rappers that can be commercial and tend to have some commercial vibes about them, but retain their street edge for the most part. And that's kind of what I saw Lil Durk as here. But I look at the concept of it, he's definitely been like a bubbler of like the past 4, 5, or 6 years or so. I mean, he's had mixtapes since like the early 2010s, but he's someone that I've noticed that has been kind of popular a lot in like Instagram life and just a general rapper amongst like today's hip hop that makes a lot of noise. Like I feel like Lil Baby is kind of one that does that. Gunna, Young I feel like Lil Baby is one that does that. Gunna, Da Baby, Young Thug, some of those type folks. But this is he's definitely one that I wanted to mess with to kind of see some of the stuff that he's up to. And from what I would have to say, this mixtape is actually rather enjoyable. It's kind of the oddest thing that this shit is free. I just would have to say is it's kind of an odd mixture just because I look after it. It's kind of an odd mixture just because I look after it. Just because for the most part, past like 2018, 2019, there weren't an overabundance of mixtapes released to like DatPiff and free websites of that sort of manner. So it's just kind of interesting to kind of get this project as like a free one just to kind of go and download and have some gems on here because it actually does have some quality and there are some things worth about this project. This is a short and sweet kind of mixtape, but it's well to the point of just having like some real kind of cognizant gems on here that kind of work pretty damn well. It does have some strong guests on here like Ty Dolla Sign, Party Next Door, Drake's buddy, Party Next Door, Gunna, Lil Baby, and some producers that I'm kind of familiar with like Nard and B and those type folks. I just would have to say it's kind of like it's relevant. That's definitely something I would say about this is kind of one of the more relevant projects I've reviewed, and a lot of times I just happen to be retro, but this is definitely one that has its relative recence to it. It kind of reminds me of like a version of Pop Smoke that's still kind of here, like the sort of stuff that Pop Smoke was kind of getting into, just not as drill heavy. It's the same kind of approach and same kind of more sing-songy. Like when you listen to Lil Durk, for those who don't absolutely know about him and are kind of wondering what's going on here, for those that don't absolutely know about Lil Durk, I would have to say he's pretty similar. He kind of has like a vibe of trap and B, which is basically trap music R&B, the sort of stuff that like Drake and like I forget the guy's name, but yeah, I'm not wholesomely familiar with trap R&B, but I know at least Drake and like Bryson Tiller, that's who it was. Bryson Tiller, those type folks kind of helped popularize trap R&B, but Lil Durk is definitely one that sings quite a bit and has like that very distinct trap voice. If you know enough Instagram models and just Instagram fellows overall, you'll probably have heard a few of his songs just in that sort of context. Definitely has a pretty popular vibe about that. He's pretty relevant amongst today's times, but I just would have to say, for the most part, this style took a moment to get used to just because the thing about his production, at least on this mixtape, is it's not in your face and it's not bombastic like club beats, smoke songs, and drinking songs, and just overall posse songs and that type of stuff. It really is kind of the theatrics towards it is it really retains like a lot of kind of more sedate and more cool personality type. It's not I mean even though Lil Durk is kind of a street individual, he's not so much of a hot personality type as much as like some of the ones of the past like Yo Gotti or Future or someone like that. He just has a lot more I don't want to say wholesomely sedate, but the productions at least are kind of more like ambient and kind of more water type personalities more so than like fire type. I know that's kind of odd to say in terms of like trying to describe it, but it just is a lot more fluid of productions, a lot more just ambience and that sort of stuff. Definitely feels more meant for Spotify as opposed to like mixed CDs and kind of that type of stuff, backyard kind of getting crunk and that sort of thing. It's just a different kind of context where there are some car songs on here. There's definitely some cruising songs, definitely some like get crunk songs in a light sense, but this is not overt. Like it seems like Lil Durk pops Xanax and that type of stuff, but just not in the context of being able to say that it's like full blown. There are songs designated to it like Future or folks like that. Like I'm trying to think of some other ones from like Migos or some of those like Gucci Mane or some of them. This is kind of, it's a different kind of vibe where this is kind of more ambient and low key kind of production values on here. But we'll go ahead and talk about the singles. There were 5 of them, and I liked at least three of the 5. So the first one is Durkio Crazy, and this is what I talk about. This production is very kind of ambient and kind of relaxed and just kind of more expressive in a lot of ways, and just kind of has a lot more aquatic kind of feel towards it and just overall mellowness. But I do like this song. I definitely could see this as like a gem for Instagram and this type of stuff. This kind of more in like a relevant time of relaxing and kind of kicking back, just kind of in a more street sense and that sort of concept. Is this one of those songs that I look after that I probably need to invest more in, because I haven't heard an overabundance of songs like this, even though I've heard like these type of songs on Instagram and that sort of lifestyle. I kind of feel like this is the sort of song that you just hear and it's like, oh, this is what the hubbub was about these past 5 or 6 years and that sort of concept. So it's just interesting to kind of get one of these highlights. Really is kind of like a more house homely kind of song. It's not quite as club oriented. It's kind of odd that Lil Durk kicked off the promotion of his album or his mixtape with this song, but it just works as kind of like, just more few cats at home, just kind of kicking it, smoking maybe like a sweet, something like that, but just kind of in a lighter sense. It's a lot more day commute kind of stuff. It's not quite blue collar and work a day, but this is kind of a really homely and surprisingly lackadaisical kind of rap song as far as what I would have expected from this kind of vibe, considering the furor that's around Lil Durk. But it is a highlight. The second single is Crossroads. This is one I didn't really enjoy as much just because it's just almost like a blatant ripoff or ode to like Bone Thugs and Harmony's Crossroads, and I just feel like Bone Thugs just nailed it that much better. If you're looking for like a 2018 version of like the 1996 song Crossroads, this is your song for that sort of thing. But I just feel like trying to make like a 2010s, late 2010s trap version of it just didn't turn out as much as I would have wanted it to. And it's the same thing with the third single, 1773 Vulture, which is basically the Suicide Song from Logic's 2017 album. Is just a different version of that. And this is another one I feel like I'm kind of not quite as sold on Lil Durk doing like ode songs or at least cover songs, kind of interpolation type songs to see what he can do with it. Just didn't quite work as well. I probably would have. I would have almost wondered if Lil Durk could have done like a different song. I mean, I know for what it was kind of trying to be chart heavy just because this was a popular song by Logic, but I don't know. This like a street version of that kind of song just kind of seemed odd. It just didn't have quite as much venom and as punctuality as like the Logic song. But yeah, it just has that context. So the fourth single is How I Know, and this is another one, like none of these singles really, if you're expecting like a ravenous, kind of riotous, raucous kind of club song that just kicks off the energy and is real kind of crazy, like something Pop Smoke or Future would do, it just doesn't have that in the singles. But I feel like How I Know is kind of like a triumphant, kind of dap kind of song, definitely like long time homie kind of song. It seems like Lil Baby and Lil Durk are good friends more than just a little bit of decent pals. So I just kind of look at the concept. Is this interesting? Kind of get that. It's not really trying to be like a Smoke One song and just kind of an overall crazy night, Friday night kind of song. And this is kind of more of like, hey, I haven't seen one of my pals in 6 months or 8 months or something like that. Just to kind of say it's just kind of a dap song in like a stronger sense. It's kind of one for the streets, but it's not quite about like getting turned up. So it's interesting. It actually does, the emotion of the song does hit a little bit. I give it credit for that, but it's just not quite an overt song if you don't have that concept kind of in mind as much. It's just, unless you're really around homies that you just are trying to show appreciation for, it doesn't really have as much of a strong meaning, but it is still a decent highlight. And then Homebody is the fifth single, and this has Gunna and TK Kravitz on there. And this one is basically like a song for the ladies. This is definitely one I can see a lot of Instagram starlets kind of listening to, something that just kind of plays in their stories and that type of stuff, as you see like 4, 5, 6 of their posts, something like that. It's just really kind of an easy Instagram kind of song, just kind of breezy bay music and that type of stuff. Just kind of works in that sort of concept. Just relevant and kind of recent 2010s, late 2010s rap music in the sense of just having Bay in mind and that sort of concept. So this kind of works in that highlighted sense. But So I'm going to go ahead and recommend the 7 songs out of 12 I recommend to you. So those 7 songs would be Just Flow, When I Was Little, How I Know, Breather, Homebody, Durkio Crazy, and Instigator. So to talk about the other songs apart from the 3 singles I liked, I feel like Breather is another song like Homebody that Breather is another one that just fits standard Instagram life and standard hoochies and just women and just flirty kind of vibes as far as that kind of goes. Just an easy kind of song for the more kind of flirtatious vibe about that sort of concept. It's just good to kind of get these breezy kind of numbers. It's just good to kind of get these breezy kind of numbers. I mean, Lil Durk actually does some of these breezy kind of songs a lot better. It seems like he has a lot more ambient energy just with the kind of laid back and more kind of like this kind of relaxed kind of mannerism. It's just you don't get like the concept of like the ferocious Lil Durk quite as much as what you may want. I think that that's kind of the concept. I know he can do like these turned up and cruising kind of songs and Friday night kind of songs, but this album really downplays that for the most part. There's just a lot of these. But I do feel like Instigator is a nice turned up song. Instigator, Just Flow, When I Was Little, particularly Just Flow and Instigator are like the 2 songs I think that you could pull up to and kind of cruise around and just kind of stunt to and cruise out for the night, show off your car, that type of stuff, have a raucous kind of night and just kind of floss and hotbox and that sort of stuff. I would definitely say those are like the 2 best beats on here, but really one of my favorite beats on here was When I Was Little. Like the keys are like there's like certain kind of synthy keys on like When I Was Little that just make it one of the best beats on here. This is the sort of stuff that Lil Durk definitely needed more of. I just feel like he would assuredly sail a lot better if he would have had more songs like When I Was Little, but I just feel like Lil Durk kind of pulled his punches on this project. He definitely needed more songs like When I Was Little, definitely in the singles I would have to say. It's just surprising that he dropped 5 singles and none of them were club songs or ferocious kind of raucous party songs or anything of that magnitude. They were all just kind of more ambient, relaxed, and kind of tepid, not tepid in energy, but not tepid in quality, but just overall mellow. This in a lot of ways, mellow and more refrained kind of energy. That's just kind of the concept about it. But I do like some of these. And I just would have to say, yeah, that about takes care of it. Just talking about Just Flow, When I Was Little, and Instigator is like the turned up songs. Those are the moments that are kind of meant for stunting and flossing. And despite the fact that this album is free, I think a lot of these still carry the energy of being some night out kind of songs, some nice night out kind of songs just because there's so much music nowadays, and I think people might have forgotten about some of these. This is kind of, I mean, I know that there's not an overabundance, but Lil Durk did pack this project a little bit with it, and that's kind of the thing. There's definitely some lady songs on here, some dap songs, that sort of stuff. There's just some good kind of concepts overall as far as that kind of goes. And there's definitely like some breezy, if you're keeping up with like Instagram life, there are some ones that are just like, hey, just all these Instagram ladies on here that are kind of like they know about these songs and you hear these trap heavy tunes all throughout is just kind of these are the sorts of tunes that connect with people pretty immediately, I just would have to say. So it's just kind of I'm going to go ahead and give this mixtape, me liking 7 songs out of 12, I'm going to go ahead and give this mixtape like a 6.75 out of 10. I feel like that's pretty rock solid. Definitely were some gems on here, especially considering that it's free, but for the most part, to talk about some of the songs I didn't like I really for the most part, to talk about songs I didn't like on this project, to talk about like some of the cover songs or at least interpolation songs like Crossroads and 1773 Vulture. I feel like I said, these songs just didn't quite connect as well, and there just were some kind of more relaxed vibes like Granny Crib. And I didn't really like the all over the place beat of My Brother. I didn't really like the all over the place beat of My Brothers. That was kind of a bad one. And Granny Crib was just kind of more relaxed. And Granny Crib was just kind of more relaxed than what I was vibing with. Public Housing was kind of like a piano type, struggle type song, but I didn't really enjoy that one as much. Just didn't quite have as engaging a production as I would have liked. I know it was kind of trying to be like a dramatic, kind of melodramatic struggle type song, but it just didn't do quite as well of a job with that. So yeah, just to say 6.75, this is an above average mixtape, and considering that this is free, you can scarf up several of these and just kind of be able to say that it's just a good chunk of this is full of highlights. I know that in some cases for folks that watch my channel that are not wholesomely adapted to like 2010s and 2020s trap music, the sing-songiness and trap R&B might be something that kind of takes a learning curve to get used to, but there is some good stuff in here, just minus the fact of just supposing that the singing kind of takes some getting used to, but it's not horrible. It's not bad. It's not something that's just like off the wall to the point where it's going to take 5 8 months to get used to. It's just kind of the concept that it has a learning curve about it. That's just kind of the concept. I messed with it, and there is some good gems on here. In terms of the social score, I would have to say, like, I think the social score I'm going to give like a 7.5 out of 10, because more than half the project, especially considering that it's just a scant 12 songs, has some real affinity towards it, and is just free once again. So that's some good concept to kind of lap some of these up and enjoy it. 7.5 social. Um, in terms of the future, like Lil Durk, he's dropped a number of projects. He's kind of like Gucci Mane, where he puts out plenty of stuff, so he has plenty of content out to really digest and kind of get done. But I just would have to look after it for what it is. I'm going to have to mess with more of these, but this is a pretty solid and palatable project overall.